Working on Bareshaft tuning some arrows for shooting with my string walking rig, my bare bow. And I've been shooting the Cheetah 650s, Carbon Tech Cheetah 650s for quite some time. These are 28 inches total length, and that's with nock and point, so the shafts are cut down to about 26. They were showing a little bit weak at the long distance shots for field, so I stripped one down and I noticed that they were showing just a little bit weak, and I mean ever so slightly weak. They're still at 45 meters. They were still on the target, just to the right. But I decided to come out and see the difference in them and the ST Epics, which are instead of are 6.4 grains per inch, and they're 600 spine. The Cheetahs are 650 spine. They're 5.7 grains per inch. So the first thing I want to do is I've still got about 1.5 inches length left on the Eastons. They're a little longer, so I can still cut them down to stiffen them up some. But I want to see the difference in speed that I'm getting out of them. So what I'm going to do is shoot them through the chrono, both Bareshaft and with feathers, just to see the difference in speed. Be interesting to note the difference from a Bareshaft to a 4-inch feather. These are 5-inch feathers, but I may go to a 3-inch feather as well. But just see how they fly and the differences in the speed, and then if we'll go back and shoot them at 20 yards and see if that if the Easton shoots a little bit better at 600. Okay, the first arrow we'll shoot is going to be the Cheetah 650 with 4-inch feathers on it. Shows 203 feet per second. I'm shooting a 37-pound bow with the Tridtech BF Extreme carbon foam limbs. Now let's shoot that same arrow with no feathers on it. 202, almost the same. They're in the target at about the same spot as well. Now let's shoot the ST Epic, which is a little bit heavier, but a 600 spined arrow. $189, and then let's shoot the Bareshaft, same one. 193, so I picked up 4 feet per second on that. That's just a sampling of one time through. We would average that. But now let's go back to 20 and see how they line up shooting Bareshafted, and then we can look at some other feather options to speed them up a little bit more. So at 20 yards, you see the Easton Bareshaft to the left of those, showing a little bit stiffer. You see the Carbon Tech showing a little bit weak. The two fletched arrows cleaned up and are right together, both of them right together. So that would look like the Easton is pretty close. It's showing just a little bit stiff. The Easton definitely wagged its tail, showing weak. Nock left, point right, going in flight, and then kind of straighten back out. Let's do it again and see if we get similar results. Those are pretty close. You see the Cheetah there shows weak a little bit more, and then it's right of the others as well. The two Eastons are right on top of each other. This should be a little bit higher because it's a lot lighter, especially without, you know, this fletched Easton has 5-inch feathers on it, which creates a lot of drag. But they're really shooting down the middle nicely. So what we're going to do is I'm going to fletch up this Easton with some short feathers and see how they control it, and see how those fly. Overnight I cut the Eastons to 28 3/4 of an inch and put 2-inch feathers on them. Good morning. The front passed through yesterday with a lot of rain, so I didn't get to finish tuning my string walking bare bow, and so this morning the temperature's dropped about 30 degrees. It's nice and cool. So I came out and want to pick up where we left off. Let's recap just a little bit. I was shooting the Cheetah 650s down to a 28-inch shaft, total length, throw to the nock to the point. And at the longer distances, Bareshaft, 45 meters, they were drifting right, showing pretty weak. That was giving me some trouble at the longer distances. Minor, but hard to, if I adjusted them, then the close-up shots were off. So I decided to try a 600 spine shaft. I pulled out some Easton ST Epics and we shot those at longer lengths and saw their impact. And I brought them down a lot closer and finally wound up with a 28 3/4 inch shaft with a 75 grain point. And so now I've got a few fletched, and I'm out here at the bale. I've got a bale with a string right down the middle of it, straight up and down. We're going to back off to 25 yards, and we'll shoot some fletched arrows and a non-fletched arrow, a Bareshaft, and we'll see how they line up centered at 25 yards to that string, in relation to that string. Now, you still may have difficulty. There's a couple of discussions going on right now among folks trying to tune string walking rigs, and it's a very difficult process. There's only one point in there where that bow's truly going to tune. So there are different techniques to try to get there. The best bet is to try and tune it at the distance you shoot most of your targets, and then recognize it's going to be a little stiff or a little weak at other places. One thing that helps me a lot is noticing string position in relation to the riser when I'm at anchor. So I line my string up right on the riser for everything back to about 50 meters, so 55 yards or so. After that, I start showing stiff with these arrows. I shot them at 50 this morning just to see where they landed, and they show stiff. So what I can do is line my string up when I'm at anchor. I see it right out of my peripheral vision. Line it up on the right side of the riser. So I know that at 50 yards and beyond, I move the string over to the right side of the riser and moves the arrow back over. I'm sorry, for stiff, move it to the left side of the riser and it'll shoot back to the center. And for weak, move it to the right side and move it back. That's a technique. Ideally, they shoot great the whole way, but when you're walking the string, that can be kind of difficult.
When you're string walking, you have to realize that the arrow will show weak or stiff at different distances because you're drawing the arrow at different length each time. The further you are down the string, the higher the nock of the arrow is on the string, and it's not coming back as far as your hand. If you're right up under the nock, then it is coming to your hand. So you have to realize that if you're not pulling it as far, it'll show weak, and if you're pulling it all the way back, then it'll show stiffer.
So if you're not string walking, don't worry about that. Hopefully you get them shooting down the middle, and they'll shoot down the middle the whole way because you're anchoring at the same place. Another thing I do that you'll see this morning is at 25 meters, I'm going to shoot all the way up under the nock. I'm not going to shoot the crawl and try to Bareshaft it there. That's just what I do. I'll aim down at the bottom of this and let them impact up here and see how they're flying. And then, as I said, I'll move on back over on the field range and shoot them at 45 yards Bareshaft and see where they're drifting. You have to take note of your shot when you're shooting these Bareshafts. You make a bad shot, disregard that shot. If it ain't as perfect as you can shoot it, it's really going to manifest in the Bareshaft, especially as you get beyond 20 yards shooting a Bareshaft. So let's move back to 25 and see how these fly. So there they are at 25 yards. Bareshaft showing a little bit stiff, and they are a little bit weak, and the Bareshaft's a little bit stiff. That's not unusual for the Bareshaft to show a little bit weak, but it looks like because it's that far lower than the other shaft, at 25 yards, that would tell me it may be a little bit because of the nock high. I'm at 4/8 on this, which isn't that nock high, but if it's not a perfect release, or if it's a little bit nock high, sometimes that nock will kick up on you, causing it to dive right and down. So shoot a few more iterations of this and see how it's acting. We may have to make an adjustment. The plunger could also be having an effect. I may need to back off on the plunger just a little bit and see how that affects the arrow. Okay, so there they are. It shows all but 2 arrows on the left side of the rope. The right one, though, is kind of pushing the rope over, so a little bit stiff, although the Bareshaft still shows just a touch weak.
We can play with the plunger here and fine tune that, but they're grouping fairly well for 25 yards. I'm not terribly unhappy with that. So I took 2 clicks off the plunger to move them left, weaker, and this demonstrates what the plunger does. That's the first arrow I shot. It centered the rope and the rope smacked it back, so it threw it back at me. I shot like 4 more, and then the 5th arrow is laying right there. It centered the rope and came back as well. You'll see down here that I have the Bareshaft now essentially touching the rope, and the angle's great. That one and just a little knock high, but those 3 then, one touching it, one right, one left. So 2 clicks of the plunger and we hit the rope. We're either touching or hit it and bounced out on 4 of the 6 arrows. The other 2 right and left. And obviously, I mean, that could have been me and my release. There it is at 48 yards, it's point on for me. That arrow at the left is the one I shook my head on. That was me. That was total bow hand. The other 3 were good shots. It's important to know that you make a bad shot, you've got to discount that arrow. So, you know, take that out of the equation and step back. You can see I'm actually probably point on about 47 and a half, not 48. That one arrow's in the dot, but the other 2. But you can see it lines up nicely back there. Arrows are still flying nice and straight.